All right, let's talk about a book that's less like a warm hug and more like a cold splash of water to the face. And honestly, it's in the best way possible. Mark Manson's The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck is not your typical self-help guide. It's not going to promise you a life without problems or some secret path to endless happiness. No, it offers something way more valuable, a brutally honest guide to finding meaning by choosing what's actually worth caring about. It's really a philosophy for living a better, more grounded life, not by adding more, but by giving less. Less of a fuck, that is. So, let's just dive right into the central paradox that Manson kicks things off with. We live in a culture that is absolutely obsessed with happiness, right? I mean, our social media feeds are just this endless highlight reel of joy, and we're constantly getting these messages that we should be happier, healthier, smarter, richer. But what actually happens when we chase that feeling? Well, the harder we try to feel happy, the more we notice that we're not happy, which then makes us feel like we're failing. It's this weird, frustrating cycle, and it's the perfect place to start our deep dive.
And this frustrating cycle, it actually has a name, the happiness trap. The core idea here is that our society's relentless focus on positivity is, get this, the root of the problem. This constant pressure to look on the bright side, to just shove down any negative emotion and to always be striving for more joy, it's not just unrealistic, it's actively harmful. It just sets us up for failure and makes us feel like there's something wrong with us for having perfectly normal human emotions like anxiety or sadness or anger.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting. There's a name for this whole paradox. The backwards law. This concept, which actually has deep roots in philosophy, is totally central to the entire book. So let's really unpack it. The more you desperately want to be rich, the more poor and insecure you feel, no matter how much money you actually have. The more you desperately want to feel confident, the more you end up focusing on all your insecurities. See? It's the wanting, the chasing, that creates the negative feeling. But look at the flip side. Accepting that you feel anxious has this weird way of calming you down. Admitting to yourself, you know what, I totally messed up and that's okay, is the first real step toward improving. It's in letting go of the fight against the negative that you find this strange, positive sense of peace. And this right here, this is how the backwards law spirals totally out of control in our own heads. Manson calls it the feedback loop from hell, and wow, is it relatable? It starts with a simple, normal emotion. Let's say you feel a bit anxious before a big presentation. Totally normal. But then your brain kicks in with this second layer of judgment. Ugh, why am I so nervous? I should be more confident. What is wrong with me? And now you're not just anxious about the presentation, you're anxious about being anxious. And that meta-anxiety, it's so much worse. It just feeds on itself, creating this vicious cycle of self-judgment that pulls you deeper and deeper in. Breaking this loop starts with just accepting that first feeling without judging it.
Okay, so if chasing good feelings is a trap and fighting bad feelings is a feedback loop from hell, what are we supposed to do? This is where the whole thing pivots. The answer isn't in what you feel, it's in what you value. Manson argues that we've been asking the completely wrong question. Instead of asking, how can I be happy, we should be asking, what is worth struggling for? Because at the end of the day, the quality of your life is determined by the quality of your values. That's the metric you use to measure yourself and the world around you.
And Manson makes a really sharp distinction here between good and bad values. Bad values are things like pleasure, material success, or needing to be right all the time. What do they all have in common? Well, they're pretty shallow. They depend on other people or things, and ultimately, they lie outside of our direct control. You can't control the stock market, right? And chasing pleasure 24/7 is basically a recipe for addiction. Good values, though, are internal. They're based in reality,
and they're about the process. Things like honesty, creativity, or self-respect. And here's the crucial part. You can choose to be honest right now. You can choose to respect yourself this very second. These values are rooted in your own behavior, which means you have 100% control over them.
This comparison, it's one of the most powerful stories in the whole book. So you've got Dave Mustaine. He gets kicked out of Metallica right before they become one of the biggest bands on the planet. So what does he do? He forms his own band, Megadeth, which becomes hugely successful, selling millions of albums. By any objective measure, the guy is a rock god. But in his own mind, he was a failure. Why? Because his metric for success was be bigger than Metallica. Now contrast that with Pete Best, the original drummer for the Beatles, fired right before they exploded. He could have spent his entire life being bitter, but instead he chose to value a quiet life with his family. He found love, he raised kids, and later in life he said he was happier than he ever would have been with the band.
And there it is, crystal clear. It was the exact same traumatic event, getting kicked out of a world-famous band. But because their underlying values were totally different, their entire experience of life was different. Mustaine valued being number one, so he was miserable. Best came to value family and stability, so he was happy. It wasn't the event that defined their lives. It was the value they used to interpret that event. Now let's get ready for the next dose of uncomfortable truth. We are raised in an era of participation trophies, of constant messages about our unlimited potential. We're all told we're destined for greatness. And this sense of entitlement, this belief that we are inherently special, well, according to Matson, it's a psychological poison. Oof, this line hits like a ton of bricks, doesn't it? It's the exact opposite of what most self-help preaches. You are not special. It sounds harsh, maybe even a little insulting, but just let that sink in for a second. By definition, most of us will be average at most things. We'll have moments of greatness, and we'll have moments of failure. We'll be somewhere in the middle of the bell curve. And Manson's point is that accepting this statistical reality isn't depressing at all. It's profoundly liberating.
I mean, think about it. Think about the crushing weight of having to be extraordinary all the time. Every vacation has to be epic, every career move groundbreaking, every relationship a fairy tale. It's exhausting. When you finally accept that you are, in fact, pretty normal, that pressure just dissolves. You're free to just be. You can find deep satisfaction in a simple meal, a good conversation, or just finishing a project at work without needing it to change the entire world. The freedom from the need to constantly prove your specialness allows you to actually live your life and appreciate its simple, beautiful, ordinary texture.
Okay, so we thought happiness, values, and our own specialness. Let's shift gears to the next core idea, which completely reframes the role of pain and struggle in our lives. The common wisdom is that we should try to avoid problems at all costs. But Manson argues that a life without problems doesn't even exist, and even if it did, it would be completely meaningless. This is another huge paradigm shift. Happiness isn't found on a beach with no worries. Happiness is the process of solving a problem. The joy is in the struggle itself. A healthy body is the result of solving the problem of fitness through the pain of exercise. A great career is a result of solving complex challenges at work. So the real question isn't, what do you want out of life? It's, what pain are you willing to sustain? What problems do you want to have? Because the quality of your problems is what determines the quality of your life.
And to choose your struggle, you have to embrace responsibility. And this is a really, really critical distinction Manson makes. Fault is a past tense concept. It's about pointing fingers, assigning blame for something that already happened. Responsibility, on the other hand, is present tense. It's about how you choose to act right now. Something terrible might happen to you that is 100% not your fault, but you are always responsible for how you respond to it. Blaming others leaves you powerless, a victim. Taking responsibility, even for things you didn't cause, gives you agency. It puts you back in the driver's seat of your own life.
So this brings us to the final and honestly the most profound layer of this whole philosophy. If life is about choosing our values and our struggles, how do we make sure we're choosing the right ones? What's the ultimate filter we can use to separate what's trivial from what's truly important? Well, Manson proposes the ultimate reality check.
It's a heavy thought, for sure, but it's an incredibly clarifying one. By keeping the reality of our own mortality in focus, not in a morbid way, but as a compass, we can cut through all the noise. Confronting the fact that our time here is finite forces us to ask the really hard questions about what we're doing with it. Death provides the perspective we need to see what actually matters.
When you seriously consider your own death, things come into sharp focus really fast. That petty argument you had last week, it vanishes. The need to impress people you don't even like, gone. The fear of trying something new and failing, it seems pretty silly compared to the certainty of an endpoint. Contemplating mortality is the ultimate tool for prioritizing. It forces you to decide, what kind of mark do I want to leave on this world? What's my legacy going to be? It strips life down to its bare essentials and helps you choose what is truly worth giving a fuck about.
And so we end right back where we began, but hopefully with a totally new perspective. The art isn't about caring about nothing. It's about caring about the right things. It's about choosing your values with intention, embracing the struggles that come along with them, and just letting go of everything else. So the final question isn't for me, it's for you. Given your limited time and your limited energy, what truly matters? What values will you live by? What problems are you excited to solve? That, right there, is the subtle art.